Excuse me, I would like to know, where do my tax dollars go to? I pay all this money, and then what happens? Great question, Mama Llama. I love that you're so curious and you're asking questions about these big systems that we are a part of. So let's break it down. And as we know, Mama Llama likes some mathematics. So let's use some mathematics to understand where our tax dollars go. Okay, here we go. Strap on in, and we are going to learn about the federal government, specifically Texas. Yay! Okay, so first of all, according to the Congressional Budget Office, last year, 2024, the federal government had a budget of $6.9 trillion. That is a lot of zeros, a lot of money, but that's because we got like 320 plus million people in this country. It's a lot of people to take care of. So, of that, about $4.9 trillion came from revenue, or basically things like taxes, individual, corporate, and payroll taxes, as well as different fees that you might be charged for federal services. And 2 trillion of that came from borrowing. So you can think about things like if you buy a government bond, you're giving the government money today that the government will pay you back later. That is a good investment strategy if you want something that is very stable long term, low risk, stable long term. Okay, so our budget is $6.9 trillion, but sometimes that can kind of feel a little like it's too much money to really fathom. We can't put it in our hands, you know? So I like to look at it in terms of percentages, because that helps me to think about, okay, well, if I had $100 that I was working with, where would that $100 trickle out to? So, in light of that $100 concept, we are going to use a pie chart. Hooray for pie charts! That's a lopsided circle, but it'll do. So to make it a little bit easier to visualize, I'm going to break this, and also to make it easier for me to draw, we're going to break our cute little pie chart into 4 equal slices. And then we'll use that to divide our budget. Okay, so each of these 4 sections represents 25% or 1/4 of our pie. The biggest bucket of our tax dollars goes towards, drumroll please, do you have any guesses? What do you think, Mama Llama? Health insurance. Heck yeah, Mama Llama, you know, because you got kids, because you're a Mama Llama. You got lots of llama babies running around. So that is right. So the biggest bucket of our tax dollars goes towards health insurance programs. Yay! Yay! Okay, whoops, I forgot an L. I left a space, but I didn't write it. Health insurance, and I'm lazy. That is 24% of all of our tax dollars. So if we had $100 that we were working with, 24 of those dollars would go to health insurance programs, which would be Medicare, Medicaid, the Children's Health Insurance Program, or CHIP, and the Affordable Care Act, or ACA. So that is the biggest bucket of our tax dollars. We have a little 1% left over, which I'm going to kind of put in parentheses, and we'll come back to that later. Because right now we are getting the big chunks out of the way. We're like, all right, we got people to take care of and programs to fulfill. What are the biggest needs that we have? So the next biggest bucket, which is 21%, is, what do you think this one is? This is Social Security. But wait, what does that actually mean? What is Social Security? I kind of actually like that phrase because it's security for the society. Social Security, which is, can you see that? 21%. So almost a quarter, but not quite. This is things like retirement benefits. So you've worked your whole life, you have paid into the system, and now you get to retire. In some jobs it might be 50, in other jobs it might be 65. Or if you are an individual that really likes to work, maybe you work all the way to 79. But when you stop working, you get payments so that you can continue to live. This also benefits our economy because that means that people who are not working can still contribute to the economy, and it keeps the economy wheels churning. Social Security also includes things like benefits to spouses and dependents, as well as disability payments. And disability payments also include if you have dependents. So, yay, Social Security. If you can't work for whatever reason, whether it's temporary or long term, you are still able to survive and contribute to the economy and take care of your loved ones within your circle. Okay, so now we're getting to some smaller buckets. We will also recognize, for y'all that can do math, 25 minus 21 is 4%. And if you can't do math and you're like, too many numbers, that's okay, boo. That's why we're here. We're learning. Math is just a language. So just put that in your little noggin and like, it's just a language. So you learn it just like we learn languages. So we have 4% left over. And if I'm moving too fast for you, you can always pause and rewatch. If you're like, wait, 25 minus 21. You just pause it, you think about it, and then you can resume. It's okay. But anyway, we will save that little bucket for later because again, we're going to use our whole budget because it's really important that we use the budget appropriately. Okay, but let's stick with our quarters because this is easy for me to draw. And so what we're going to do now is we have a next fairly large chunk, but smaller than these two big buckets. This one goes towards defense. And I'm going to try to think ahead. And so we're going to write defense. This is 13% of our budget. So most of this goes to maintenance and operations, personnel, military personnel. It also goes to things like weapons purchasing, weapons procurement, as well as R&D, research and development, evaluation, testing, those types of things. However you agree or disagree with the defense spending, I was actually quite surprised to find that it was much less than health insurance and Social Security. So we spend a lot more on these social programs than we do on making sure our country is safe and secure. But yeah, this bucket, there's some controversy there, but I'm not going to touch that just yet. If you're curious about and you want to learn more, we can do a conversation on that. But this is just, where does our money go? Let's learn. Okay, so actually the next biggest chunk, which is another 13%. So if you're keeping track, 13 plus 13 is 26%. So we're into this quarter a little bit. This is actually interest payments. So the federal government makes interest payments on their debt every single year. This is another 13%. And you can think about this like when you have a credit card bill and you don't pay off the whole amount every year, there's an interest payment that gets added to that credit card bill. And so you have to pay off that interest when you make the next payment. And that helps to keep that credit card bill a little bit manageable. So the federal government does actually pay down its interest. The next bucket, which is, well, okay, hold on. I'm going to back up. And to make this, again, easier for me to draw, we are left in this section, we are left with 24%. So I'm going to divide this into 3 equal sections, which represent about 8% each. This next 8% goes towards, I'm going to do this down here because these buckets are going to be a lot of things. So this is veterans benefits, veterans bends, and my handwriting is getting really sloppy, veterans benefits, and federal retirees. So the federal retirees get different retirement benefits than Social Security, or it comes from a different bucket of money. And then the next one, I gotta look at my notes because I can't remember all of these. There's a lot of different buckets here. So the next bucket, which I'm really stoked about, is 7%, so a little bit less than this 8% quarter that I slotted. This is economic security programs. So economic security. So these are things like SNAP benefits. So if you don't have enough income to purchase food to survive, you can get some economic security from the federal government, which is basically all of us coming together and saying, yo, we want to take care of each other. It's important that you're able to eat. So here is some money to be able to eat. It also includes things like subsidized housing. So similarly, if you are unable to afford housing, we come together collectively as society and recognize that it is cheaper to give people housing than it is to have them on the streets. We can do a whole video on that if you're curious, because yes, research shows it is cheaper to give people housing. It costs about $20,000 to give people housing per year, and it costs about $60,000 in taxpayer money if that person is on the street using public services. So we want to be smart and use data and evidence to make informed and kind decisions. So yes, for economic security programs, 7% of our federal budget. All right, so we actually have, what do we have left? We have 5% here, and then we have, 9% left over. So what I'm going to do is I am going to circle this one and smush them together into one of my favorite buckets. It's hard to pick a favorite, but this is one of my favorites. Into education. Education! Woo! So this would be public schools and various, funding for public schools, funding for teachers, funding for all of the programs for the, how many children do we have in the United States? 100 million? That's totally random guess. But all of those little babies that need an education, we bucket for that, because it turns out when you educate people, your economy benefits because people are able to contribute more effectively. So oftentimes, I love this, oftentimes the most effective and efficient choice is also the right choice. Not always, but often. Okay, so education is 5%. So we just we just bucketed some of these like little extra pieces that we had left over. We still got 9% left to go. What have we got left? Well, what about all those roads and bridges and all that shenanigans? We got to pay for those. I just used green. Okay, hold on. We're going to go back to purple. So transportation is 2%. This little purple slice. Oh, I used purple a bunch. Actually, we're going to go over here. Okay, so transportation. I spelled that wrong. That should be an O. Wow, I really spelled that wrong. Hold on. This is all crooked and really hard to read. Okay. Sometimes I'm better at math than spelling. Transportation. This is 2% of our budget. So, okay, cool. That's important. We're starting to get into these little bits and pieces now. So now we have 1% that is going to natural resources and agriculture. Oh my goodness, my handwriting is getting so bad. Natural resources and ag. That is 1%. So this would be all of the Forest Service programs, the funding for our national parks and its personnel to take care of those national parks and make sure that they are able to be visited, including, search and rescue. Very, very important. I had a friend that worked for search and rescue, and oh boy, did he have some wild stories. And those people are really, really grateful to see him. It also includes agriculture. It was really surprising to me. So we have funding to ensure that our farms that produce food for the United States and for other places in the world can operate effectively. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. The next little slice, the next 1% slice, is for scientific and medical research. Science and medicine. Meds. Well, not really. It's for research. R&D. Well, no, it's not development. It's just research. So we'll just say R. And that is a 1%. Oh, okay. I'm still running out of space. What have we got left? Okay. That's almost it. We have 4% left. So, la 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 la, what colors do I want to use? What about blues? Okay. So then we have another 1% is for international. And so this would be things like humanitarian aid, as well as funding for our embassies. Very important. One time when I was in Berlin, my friend left her passport on a train. Bad. Very bad. But we went to the US Embassy. They let us in. They were like, "Are you American citizens? Go right ahead." There's a big long line, but we got into the front and they got us a passport in 24 hours. Well, yes, I was with her supporting her, but they got my friend a passport in 24 hours. So heck yes to the folks that work at our embassies. They are so helpful and so wonderful, and I'm so grateful they exist. So that is 1% of our funding. And the rest of it I am gonna put in white because the remaining 3% of our budget goes to this MISC category. Buying staplers for the office, making sure that we can procure vehicles, all of the random assorted things that you're like, oh, I forgot I needed to buy paper towels, or that I forgot that I needed to buy cleaning supplies for the bathrooms. I'm kind of making things up a little bit, but like that's kind of the MISC category for various different expenses that the federal government has. To make sure, it's kind of that category to make sure that it can do all of these other things. All of these other things take a lot of administrative oversight and probably a lot of paper because the federal government still uses faxes. Here we are. Anyway, if you want to talk about efficiency, we could upgrade the fax machines and I would be happy with that. Okay, so there you go. That is where our budget goes. So when we give money to the federal government, if we were to give $100, well, actually I shouldn't say that because it's not really one-to-one, but if we give money to the federal government, most of our money is going towards health insurance programs and social security programs. It's also going to fund all of these other amazing programs that we use on a day-to-day basis, that every single one of us, and tourists, and immigrants, every single one of us uses these services on a daily basis. Or at least we will use these services like Social Security at some point in our lives. Hopefully if it still exists, fingers crossed. It's really important to understand these things because we exist within them, we use them. And if we want to build better systems, or if we want to understand the existing systems that we live and work in, we gotta know the basics, right? If you want to learn more, I would highly recommend checking out the history of where programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security came from. We did not always have them in the United States. We created them because we realized we really needed them. The history is really fascinating, and if you want me to do a video on that, I totally will. That gets a little bit out of the mathematics, but you know what? Nothing exists in isolation, right? We build on the backs of our forefathers and foremothers and forefolks that have come before us so that we can build better systems for each other. All right. Thank you very much for watching. A big thank you to our dear Mama Llama for her lovely question. Please let me know if you have any questions or if there are other civics math topics that you are curious about. Thank you for watching and hanging out with me, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.